You know, there's no doubt that the Grateful Dead are the greatest jam band of all time. They've been saluted in numerous publications, books, and the Grateful Dead, when they're at their peak, were the what do you call the soundtrack to the late '60s, early '70s counterculture, especially Jerry Garcia. Now, today we're not going to be talking about the full history of the band, but how Jerry Garcia's early years growing up in San Francisco influenced his career. Of course, he left us way too early at the age of 53 in August '95 from a massive heart attack. Now, the principal songwriter, lead guitarist, and vocalist with Grateful Dead, he co-founded it, and again, which came to prominence during the counterculture '60s. Although he disavowed the role, Garcia was viewed by many as the leader of the band. He was inducted to the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in '94 as a member of the group. Now, as one of its founders, he performed with the Grateful Dead for the band's entire 30-year career between '65 and '95. He also founded and participated in a variety of side projects, including the Saunders Garcia Band with longtime friend Merle Saunders, the Jerry Garcia Band, Old and In the Way, the Garcia Grisman and Garcia Con acoustic duos, Legion of Mary, and the New Riders of the Purple Sage, which he co-founded with John Dawson and David Nelson. He also released several solo albums and contributed to a number of albums by other artists over the years as a session player. He was well known for his distinctive guitar playing and was ranked 13th in Rolling Stone's 100 Greatest Guitarists of All Time. In the 2015 version, he fell to 46. Now in 2023, he was ranked 34th by Rolling Stone, so, you know, the trend thing. Now, strong musical and technical ability, he had the strong adjunct to play a variety of instruments and sustain long improvisations. He believed that improv took stress away from his playing and allowed him to make spur-of-the-moment decisions that he would not have made intentionally. In a '93 interview with the Rolling Stone 2 years before his passing, he noted that my own preferences are for improv, for making up as I go along. The idea of picking, of eliminating possibilities by deciding, that's difficult for me. Originating from the days of the acid tests, these improvisations were a form of exploration rather than playing a song already written. Now, later in life, he struggled with diabetes. In '86, he went into a diabetic coma that nearly cost him his life. Although his overall health improved somewhat after the incident, he continued to struggle with obesity, smoking, and unfortunately his long-standing heroin and cocaine addictions. He was staying in a California drug rehab when he died of a heart attack in August '95 at the age of 53. Now, a lot of people question his background, if this is true or not. There's many influences. His ancestors on his father's side were from northwest Spain, Galicia. His mother's ancestors were Irish and Swedish. He was born in the Excelsior district of San Fran on August 1st, 42, to Jose Ramon Joe Garcia and Ruth Marie Bobby Nee Clifford Garcia, who were herself born in San Fran. Her parents named him after composer Jerome Kern. Now, Jerome John was their second child, preceded by Clifford Raymond Tiff, who was born in '37. Shortly before Clifford's birth, their father and a partner leased a building in downtown San Fran and turned into a bar, partly in response to Jose being blackballed from a musicians' union for moonlighting. Now, influenced by music at an early age, he took piano lessons for much of his childhood. His father was a retired pro musician, and his mother enjoyed playing the piano. His father's extended family, which had immigrated from Spain in 1919, would often sing during reunions. Now, in '46, two-thirds of 4-year-old Garcia's right middle finger was cut off by his brother in a wood-splitting accident while the family was vacationing in the Santa Cruz Mountains. He later confessed he often used it to his advantage in his youth, showing it off to other children in his neighborhood. Well, Jerry had a good, genial sense of humor, so that's not a surprise. Now, less than a year after this incident, his father died in a fly fishing accident when the family was vacationing near Arcata in Northern California. He slipped after entering the Trinity River, part of the Six Rivers National Forest, and drowned before other fishermen could reach him. Although Garcia claimed he saw the incident, Dennis McNally, author of the book A Long Strange Trip, The Inside Story of the Grateful Dead, argues Garcia formed a memory after hearing others repeat the story. Blair Jackson, who wrote Garcia in American Life, notes that a local newspaper article describing Jose's death did not mention Jerry being present when he died. Now, following his father's tragic passing, Garcia's mother Ruth took over her husband's bar, buying out his partner for full ownership. She began working full-time there, sending Jerry and his brother to live nearby with her parents, Tilly and William Clifford. During the 5-year period in which he lived with his grandparents, he enjoyed a large amount of autonomy and attended Monroe Elementary School. At the facility, he was greatly encouraged in his artistic abilities by his third-grade teacher. Through her, he discovered that being a creative person was a viable possibility in life. According to Garcia, it was around this time that he was opened up to country and bluegrass music by his grandmother, whom he recalled enjoying listening to the old Grand Ole Opry. His elder brother Clifford, however, staunchly believed the contrary, insisting that Garcia was fantasizing all that. She'd been to the Opry, but she didn't listen to it on the radio. It was this point that Garcia started playing the banjo, which was his first stringed instrument. Now, in 1953, Garcia's mother married Wally Matuszewicz. Subsequently, Garcia and his brother moved back home with their mother and new stepfather. However, due to roughneck reputation in their neighborhood at the time, Garcia's mother moved their family to Menlo Park. During their stay in Menlo Park, Garcia became acquainted with racism and anti-Semitism, things he disliked intensely. The same year, he was also reduced to rock and roll and rhythm and blues by his brother, and his list included Ray Charles, John Lee Hooker, B.B. King, Hank Ballard, and later Chuck Berry. Clifford often memorized the vocals for his favorite songs and would then make Garcia learn the harmony parts, a move to which Garcia later attributed much to his early ear training. Now, in mid-1957, Garcia began smoking cigarettes and was introduced to dope. Garcia would later reminisce about this time he smoked marijuana for the first time. Me and a friend of mine went up to the hills with 2 joints, the San Francisco foothills, and smoked them and just got so high and laughed and roared and went skipping down the streets doing funny things and just having a hell of a time. During this period, Garcia also studied what is now the San Francisco Art Institute. At San Fran Art, Garcia was taught by Wally Hedrick, an artist who came to prominence during the 60s. During the classes, he often encouraged Garcia to draw and paint, noting that Garcia had skill in both areas. Hedrick also introduced Garcia to the fiction of Jack Kerouac, whom Garcia later cited as a major influence. Now, in June, when he graduated from local Menlo Oak School, he then moved with his family back to San Fran, where he lived in an apartment above the family bar, a newly built replacement for the original, which had been torn down to make way for a freeway entrance. 2 months later, on Garcia's 15th birthday, his mother bought an accordion for him, to his great disappointment. Garcia, long captivated by many rhythm and blues artists, especially Chuck Berry and Bo Diddley, leaving him craving an electric guitar. After some pleading, his mother exchanged her accordion for a Dan Electro with a small amplifier at a local pawn shop. Garcia's stepfather, who was somewhat proficient with instruments, helped tune his guitar to an unusual open tuning, and of course the rest is history. Now, after a short stint at Denman Junior High School, he attended 10th grade at Balboa High School in 1958, where he often got into trouble for skipping classes and fighting. Consequently, in 1959, Garcia's mother again moved the family to a safer environment, to Cazadero, a small town in Sonora County, 90 miles north of San Fran. This turn of events did not settle well with Garcia, who had to travel by bus 30 miles to Annalee High School in Sebastopol, the nearest school, sort of like what I did going from Jackson to Dalhousie. Me was a 45 miles return every day. Now, Garcia did, however, join a band in school known as the Chords. After performing in and winning contests, the band's reward was recording a song they chose Raunchy by Bill Justice. Now, this is where it gets kind of freaky. Now, Garcia then stole his mother's car in 1960 and was given the option to join the U.S. Army in lieu of prison. He received basic training at Fort Ord. After training, he was transferred to Fort Winfield Scott to the Presidio of San Francisco. He spent most of his time in the Army at his leisure, missing roll call and accruing many accounts of being AWOL. As a result, he was given a general discharge on December 14, 1960. Now, in January 1961, Garcia drove to East Palo Alto to see Laird Grant, an old friend from middle school. He had purchased a '50 Cadillac sedan from a cook in the Army, which barely made it to Grant's residence before it broke down. He spent the next few weeks sleeping where friends would allow, eventually using his car as a home. Though True Grant, Garcia met Dave McQueen in February, who, after hearing Garcia perform some blues music, introduced him to local people and to the Chateau, a rooming house located near Stanford, which was then a popular hangout for all ages. Now, in February 2061, he got into a car with Paul Spiegel, a 16-year-old artist and acquaintance of Garcia. Also in the vehicle was Lee Adams, the house manager of the chateau and driver of the car, and Alan Tress, a companion. After speeding past the Palo Alto Veterans Hospital, the driver encountered a curve and, speeding around 90 miles per hour, crashed into a guardrail, sending the car rolling turbulently, sort of like the situation with George Lucas when he sports car. Garcia was hurled through the windshield of the car in a nearby field with such force that it was literally dislodged from his shoes and later unable to recall the ejection. Lee Adams, the driver, and Alan Tress, who was seated in the back, were thrown from the car as well, resulting in abdominal injuries and spine fracture, respectively. Garcia escaped with a broken collarbone, while Spiegel, still in the car, was fatally injured. Now, Lee's reckless driving and crash served as an awakening for Garcia, who later said, "That's where my life began. Before then, I was always living in less than capacity. I was idling. That was a slingshot for the rest of my life. It was like a second chance. Then I got serious." It was at this time that Garcia began to realize he needed to begin playing the guitar in earnest, a move which meant giving up his love for drawing and painting. Now, in April '61, Garcia first met Robert Hunter, who would become a longtime friend of and lyricist for Grateful Dead, collaborating principally with Garcia. The two involved themselves in the South Bay and San Fran art and music scenes, sometimes playing in Menlo Park's Kepler's Books. Garcia performed his first concert with Hunter, each earning, get this, $5. Garcia and Hunter also played in bands, including the Wildwood Boys and the Hart Valley Drifters, with David Nelson, who would later play with Garcia in the New Riders of the Purple Sage and contribute to several Grateful Dead album songs. Now, in '62, he met Phil Lesh, the eventual bassist of the Grateful Dead, during a party in Menlo Park's bohemian Perry Lane neighborhood, where author Ken Kesey lived. Lesh would later write in his autobiography that Garcia reminded him of pictures he had seen of composer Claude Debussy with his dark curly hair, goatee, impressionist eyes. While attending another party in Palo Alto, Lesh approached Garcia to suggest he record Garcia on Lesh's tape recorder and produce a radio show for the progressive, community-supported Berkeley radio station KPFA. Using an old Wallen-esque tape recorder, they recorded Mandy Groves and A Long Black Veil, among several other tunes. The recordings then became a central feature of a 90-minute KPFA special broadcast, The Long Black Veil and Other Ballads, An Evening with Jerry Garcia. The link between KPFA and the Grateful Dead continues to 2024, having including many fundraisers, interviews, live concert broadcasts, tape band performances, and all-day or all-weekend Dead-only marathons. Now, Garcia, right after this, soon began playing and teaching acoustic guitar and banjo. One of Garcia's students was Bob Matthews, who later engineered many of the Grateful Dead's albums. Matthews attended Menlo Atherton High School and was friends with Bob Weir. And on New Year's Day Eve '63, in a moment that changed rock and roll history, he introduced Weir and Garcia. Now, between '62 and '64, Garcia sang and performed mainly bluegrass, old-time, and folk music. One of the bands Garcia performed with was the Sleepy Hollow Hogstoppers, a bluegrass act. The group consisted of Garcia on the guitar, banjo, vocals, and harmonica, Marshall Leister on banjo, guitar, and vocals, and Dick Arnold on fiddle and vocals. Soon after this, Garcia, Weir, Rod Pigpen McKernan, and several of their friends formed a jug band called Mother McGee's Uptown Jug Champions. Around this time, the psychedelic drug LSD was gaining popularity. Garcia first began using it in '64, and later, when asked how it changed his life, he remarked, "Well, it changed everything. The effect was that it freed me because I suddenly realized that my little attempt at having a straight life and doing that was really a fiction and just wasn't going to work out. Luckily, I wasn't far enough in it to be shattering or anything. It was like a realization that it just made me feel immensely relieved." And he talks about this in various, what he called CBC, BBC, and different documentaries that talk about that time. Now, in '65, Mother McCree's Uptown Jug Champions evolved into Warlocks with the addition of Phil Lesh on bass guitar and Bill Kreutzmann on percussion. However, the band discovered another group, which would later become the Velvet Underground, had recently selected the same name. In response, Garcia came up with Grateful Dead by opening a Funkelwaggles dictionary to an entry for Grateful Dead. The definition for Grateful Dead was a dead person or his angel showing gratitude to someone who, as an act of charity, arranged their burial. The band's first reaction was disapproval. Garcia later explained the group's reaction. I didn't like it really, I just found it to be really powerful. Bob didn't like it, Bill didn't like it, and nobody really wanted to hear about it. Despite their dislike of the name, it quickly spread by word of mouth and soon became their official title. Now, Garcia eventually served as lead guitarist and one of the principal vocalists and songwriters of the Grateful Dead for the band's entire career, especially, obviously, in the key years. He composed songs since Uncle John's Band, Dark Star, Franklin's Tower, and Scarlet Begonias, among many others. Robert Hunter, an ardent collaborator with the band, wrote the lyrics to all but a few of Garcia's songs. So again, a whole series of events, a near-death experience, Velvet Underground. I don't know if they even use that term, the Warlocks, because I do know there was sort of a British band that was called the same way. So if anybody would have backed that up. But we have a follower from the channel that's been coming on the last few days. He's been talking a lot about his appreciation of the hockey podcast we've been doing, and he asked us to do something on Jerry. We obviously, Grateful Dead would take days to cover everything, but we're just talking about the early years of Jerry Garcia. And just like the Guess Who, just like any Canadian or American band, they weren't a garage band, but they were pretty close to it. And the influence, of course, country and traditional music is big in the Grateful Dead for obvious reason. But I'm not a big fan of the Grateful Dead, but I see how people would be, because they're a celebration of Grateful Dead's about freedom and seeking out your own path. And it's a party band. So, I mean, either you do dope or do it, teetotaling or whatever it is, whatever your vice is. And Jerry's missed. I know it's weird to say 28 years later. I think the world would be a better place if Jerry would have lived the last 3 decades, because he would probably have said something more pertinent about the modern things that's going on in the States. A big part of the hippie movement died with him, and that's a bummer, because the hippie movement itself was, the majority was positivity, asking for change and peace and love, and not, social media and, thinking that a post on the internet is going to solve whatever problems people have in their personal life. It's a weird time. So, ladies and gentlemen, if you like what we're doing here, we're our tribute podcast. Let us know in the like, comment, subscribe, or share. And don't forget, happy holidays. Bye.